How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys Alex and Ryan. Not the expected result we had for this Giants game last night, but nonetheless, we're in full-fledged baseball season in about a month here, so we're looking ahead, and we got a hot take for you today with, as Sam would say, our other co-host, Daddy Stanton. And Stanton's a monster. We know this. Power metrics are off the charts. They continue to be. We're going to talk about this, talk about his health kind of problem he's going through the last couple seasons. Hasn't played over 150 games since, 2018, his first year with the Yankees. So it's been a minute since we've seen him play a full year. And last year, only 110 games. A good 30 of them definitely were injury-riddled. So, we're going to discuss his quality, our hot take. I definitely think if he maintains his health, he can get there. But it is certainly a bold one. And if you guys have any hot takes of your own, always happy to hear you drop them in the YouTube comments, and we can discuss those in a future episode. But Ryan, before we dive into it, how you do today, my friend?
I'm feeling great. The Yankees, unfortunately, are going to have to take over the mantle for the Giants. They have not that they have crazy high expectations to live up to in that regard, but it definitely is sad to see that season come to an end. But when you're looking at Giancarlo Stanton, he's a big part of what the Yankees are going to be doing in 2023. Last year, 115 WRC plus is kind of underwhelming for Giancarlo Stanton. You look at the batting average, look at the BABIP. That's not where you want Giancarlo Stanton to be at. 211 for a batting average, 227 for a BABIP. Those are career worst for Giancarlo Stanton, and it's not really close either. Stanton can get grouped in as the high strikeout, high power guy, and that is a very good description of Giancarlo Stanton. But one thing that people tend to kind of overlook is that Stanton typically hits for a pretty solid average as well because he hits the ball so hard. He's going to generate high BABIPs. When he puts the ball in play, they're going to go for hits. It's kind of hard to play defense on a 115 mile an hour ground ball, But Giancarlo Stanton last year, despite the fact that he only had a 115 WRC plus, despite the fact that he only hit 211, he hit 31 home runs in 110 games last year. He was 4 home runs shy of this 2021 total where he had a 137 WRC plus. And as people remember, just had ice in his veins, just became an absolute monster when the Yankees needed him most. He was 4 shy of that, and he played 29 fewer games. So, Giancarlo Stanton realistically could have gotten to 40-something home runs this year had he stayed healthy. And of course, had he stayed healthy, perhaps that home run pace was a little bit would have been a little bit better. In the first half, Giancarlo Stanton was absolutely destroying the baseball. Giancarlo Stanton was a home run machine. Early in April, you could have argued that the guy that you would have said, hey, this guy might go and hit 62 home runs. It wasn't Aaron Judge. It looked like it could have been Giancarlo Stanton. I know that it's hard for a lot of people to place lofty expectations for a home run total for someone, especially considering that what you don't want to do is, place too high of expectations, and then a really good season would still be disappointing in comparison to a historic year. But if anyone can have lofty power standards, if anyone is worthy of having this, expectation to go out there and put up ridiculous home run totals and do things people have never seen before in the power department, it's Giancarlo Stanton. We could be seeing, the baseballs perhaps be a little more favorable. I know that, last 2 years they're kind of dead end, so perhaps that helps Giancarlo Stanton a little bit. And then ultimately it's health, right? Giancarlo Stanton being healthy, if Giancarlo Stanton is healthy, I'm very confident he gets close to 50. You know what I mean? This isn't just a matter of just because of the volume needing to get a certain amount of games played, but because you aren't going to see those IL rust stints. You mentioned this before, you kind of coined this, the IL rust. Giancarlo Stanton doesn't look right after he comes back from the IL, right? It takes time for him to look right. And that factors into, that kind of hurts his season numbers. And that isn't to say that Giancarlo Stanton, that you should ignore those sample sizes. That's part of who Giancarlo Stanton is as a player. That's part of his talent level. That's part of the cons to Giancarlo Stanton. But again, if he's able to keep a clean bill of health, man, it's kind of hard for me to imagine he has those long extended slumps and also doesn't get the volume to go out and hit 40, 50 home runs next year.
Yeah, look, like you said, it all kind of boils down to the health here. Now, looking at Stanton specifically, last season, like I said, 110 games. He's 32 years old, 33 years old right now. His power metrics remain very good. Last year he had above average in terms of his career averages in pretty much every category. 52.1% hard hit rate, 138 hard hit balls, 19.2% barrel rate, and 95 exit velocity on average. Those are above all of his career averages. Age is not catching up with Stanton in terms of power, but the health department remains a little bit of a question mark. The calf injury has popped up a couple times. The question is, how can the Yankees mitigate those injuries in the future? How can they stop him from getting hurt? If you look at his numbers last season, first half of the year, he was on pace for a ridiculous stat line. I actually was looking at his numbers this morning, and they're freaking impressive. In May and June, specifically, he had 15 homers with 38 combined RBIs. Like, the guy was on fire in those 2 months. He had a 38.8% on base rate in the month of May. And then, the injuries took hold in the second half of the year and completely derailed his season. Ends up hitting 211, a sub 30% on base rate, which is like not usual for him. His career average is 35%. Seeing about a 6% decrease is almost like, okay, like that's an anomaly. Like, clearly he was not healthy. Clearly he was not feeling great. Aaron Boone has already said he's going to play him in the outfield in spurts, probably more so to mitigate injury fatigue for Aaron Judge. That's really what Stanton's main job is going to be, because right field's probably the easiest position in Yankee Stadium. And ultimately having Judge there keeps him healthy, keeps him good to go. Stanton playing a couple games there just to keep Judge healthy. I think they have a good balancing act in that respect. But like you said before, 115 WRC plus for Stanton is not normal. He has never had a WRC plus that low in his career. He's a 1.2 WAR player, but his steamer projections are solid for this upcoming season. Kind of gets back up in the 33% on base, or I think he could get to 35%, no problem, if he maintains his health. They have him at 31 homers over 125 games, but at this point in time, it's like Stanton's entire value is hitting home runs. Like you said before, you kind of sacrifice the strikeout rate. He's going to hover around 27 to 30%, but the power metrics are what stand out to me as like, this is all reliant on health. His power remains. Like, he is still an elite hitter when he's at the top of his game, and he gets better with consistency and continuity. It's everything it boils down to what we've been saying just routinely. If he's able to stay consistent, if he's able to stay healthy, he can easily hit 40. He can maybe hit 50 homers. So I guess, Ryan, my question for you is, how do you kind of limit Stanton to make sure that he maintains that health? What is the strategy there? It's impossible to really have a defined strategy, but in my opinion, like, there's certain points in the year that he tends to get injured, like midway, like towards the second half of the season, like right before the All-Star break, right after the All-Star break, he kind of starts to pick up these nicks and knacks. How do you think they limit his workload? How do you think they kind of go about this? I don't think he can play 150 games. Maybe he could DH that, but I still even think 150 games as a DH, he still gets hurt like 2 or 3 times during the season. I'm probably looking at like 140 max games. What is your game total there in terms of how many you think you can play before you kind of got to be careful with the workload?
Yeah, so there are a couple of variables here. Number one, Giancarlo Stanton and how he reacts to the outfield. Is Giancarlo Stanton healthier when he's playing the outfield? Does he feel healthier when he's just DHing? That's kind of something that, Yankee fans have tried to speculate on for a while, but only Giancarlo Stanton and the Yankees medical staff can truly know that. Kind of just using common sense here, you would imagine being a DH would allow you to stay healthier, but that hasn't always been the case for Stanton. Perhaps that's just like anecdotal evidence and not actually what the case is, because we've seen it in the past where he's just a DH. It doesn't really keep him healthy, and we've seen times where he DHs and plays some outfield, and it looks like he's playing his best baseball. That's another factor for this 50 home run equation here. Giancarlo Stanton's comfort in the outfield. Does Giancarlo Stanton like playing the outfield enough to the point where it kind of affects the other part of his game, where he maybe feels a little more in rhythm, a little less kind of taken out of the action? Who knows? Baseball is a mental game. There are certain little things that players feel improve their game or don't improve their game, even if there isn't any analytical data behind it or evidence behind it. And then the last factor here, is there a mechanical thing here? Is maybe there's something that Giancarlo Stanton is doing that he doesn't know he's aware that he isn't aware of, he doesn't know that he's doing, that perhaps is putting pressure or unneeded stress on his, whether it's his knees, his Achilles, his lower body. It'll be interesting to see kind of how the Yankees manage that. Even last year, we said it's like it was an injury-riddled season, and he played 110 games, right? If that's kind of the new floor for Giancarlo Stanton games played, and I put it in quotation marks because obviously the floor for games played is 0, but if that's kind of like one of the not ideal outcomes, which is him playing 110 games, we've come a long way from 2020, 2019, when getting 110 games on Giancarlo Stanton would have been considered a miracle. But man, it's kind of tough because we're speculating on something that's more medical, and that's, dealing with a lot of things that is very specific to Giancarlo Stanton, which obviously the public won't be aware of Giancarlo Stanton's specific physical and medical needs. But I trust the Yankees medical staff. I trust the Yankees coaching staff. I trust the Yankees as an organization to be able to mitigate his fatigue. And of course, it all comes down to a little bit of rotten luck, right? Sometimes you just get unlucky with injuries, right? I believe Giancarlo Stanton actually got hit with a pitch or fouled off a pitch off himself, and that was the root root of one of his injuries. So, sometimes it's just a matter of like you can't catch a break, or you do catch a break in the injury regard, and you kind of have things bounce your way. But as we've said all episode, if Giancarlo Stanton is healthy, big emphasis here. It's the sky's the ceiling here when it comes to his home run total. His power is generational. We've seen him put up incredible power displays before, and if he can go out and do that alongside Aaron Judge and alongside Anthony Rizzo, and as the young kids come up, this Yankee lineup is going to be very formidable.
Yes, they absolutely are going to be very formidable, and I'm excited to see what they can do, guys. But that kind of wraps up our hot take episode, part 1, Stanton 50 homers. That's pretty bold, I would say, but not unrealistic if he can stay healthy, in my opinion. So we'll see how they kind of go about this, how they mitigate his workload, how they make sure they can stay healthy. But if you have any hot takes below yourself, we'll address them in the part 2 video. We'll talk about them, have a discussion if we think it's realistic or not. So always happy to hear your perspectives below in the YouTube comments. Make sure to like, subscribe. As always, we've got a month left until spring training, a little bit less now. We're hyped. We're excited. We want you guys to be a part of the ride, so we appreciate all the love as always. We'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.